Broke the story on local homestead tax credit fiasco. Expose the Evansville Redevelopment Commission excessive spending habits.
Your community watchdog. CityCountyObserver.com is your online community newspaper dedicated to the progress of Evansville and Vanderburgh County. We're a nonpartisan publication providing insight into political issues and events that shape our community. We are a watchdog for you, the citizen. Check us out online, city-countyobserver.com. That's city-countyobserver.com.
Tri-State Voices, an open discussion with area leaders on issues affecting communities throughout the Tri-State. Now, here are your hosts, Cheryl Musgrave and Mark Owen.
Well, hello, and welcome to Tri-State Voices. We're here today with a brand new panel, a brand new format. Mark Owen and I, Cheryl Musgrave, we are going to bring a new dimension to Evansville and the Tri-State and talk about issues that interest us.
And it ought to be fun.
It should be fun. We're going to make it fun.
Yes.
Yes, and if we don't have at least one argument, I'll feel slightly cheated.
I know.
So let me introduce Mark Owen. I know Mark Owen primarily as the Vanderburgh County Democrat Chairman. He served for 12 years in that role. Practically during the entire time I was running for office, I think you were party chairman. So you were always the nemesis.
Yes.
But you had other roles to play as well. You served 2 terms on the Vanderburgh County Council, a place where a lot of people think that you might want to just go to die, but apparently Mark thinks it was the best place ever. And he was also a Vanderburgh County Commissioner for a while. And he has had a couple of other pretty spectacular roles, serving as chair of the campaign for mayor for Jonathan Weinsapple and for Congressman Brad Ellsworth. And now you work at F.C. Tucker MD Realtors, along with serving on the Vanderburgh County Sheriff's Commission, and a couple other roles in there too, I think I forgot about.
And enjoy it. And enjoyed being the party chairman and enjoyed not being the party chairman.
Yeah.
It's always great, you enjoy it when you do it, or at least initially, but you're always glad to be able to have it in the past. And
those are hard roles to fill.
it's a tough role. It's a tough
I'm
role.
amazed that you last 12 years.
And you don't make any friends doing it.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to introduce Cheryl, because what you said, in fact, was true. That when I first became, more familiar with you is when you ran for county assessor. I know as the Board of Review member, you were the aggressive member of the Board of Review, always going up against the county assessor, and ultimately ran against a long-term incumbent, I think maybe 4 or 5 terms.
6.
And, people really didn't expect that you'd be able to beat him, and you ran extremely aggressive campaign and were creative in the campaign and knocked off a long-term incumbent and went on as the county assessor and became later a county commissioner. Ultimately, her work was recognized by the governor, and she was asked to come and head up the Department of Local Government Finance, which formerly had been the Board of Tax Commissioners, which regulates county and city government spending.
Property tax.
And property tax
was
law.
the chief reason I was sent there.
And has had a great career in both politics and government. And so you certainly know Republican Party politics and government.
Well, we're here today to talk about something that isn't necessarily party politics. And we've chosen this topic because it's such a hot topic right now. We're here to talk about the new residency ordinance that was passed by City Council. And this ordinance, it may sound a bit like you should yawn when the City Council says, gosh, all the folks who are appointed to Evansville City Boards should live in the city of Evansville. Most people would sort of go hear that, nod, and walk away. But it has caused somewhat of a local furor. The residency ordinance was vetoed by the mayor. And the City Council turned right around and overrode his veto immediately, passing it again. And so it was then law. Next thing you know, the mayor has filed a lawsuit, and the lawsuit will be heard soon. So what we're going to do today is just discuss this. pros, cons, points that maybe don't have any relationship to a pro or con, but just get thrown out there, and talk about it. Let's just walk all the way around it. And today I can introduce Josh Claiborne. I've known Josh for many years. Josh is a former member of the Evansville-Vanderburgh Library Board. And you had to give up that seat when this ordinance was passed because, alarmingly, although you grew up here in Evansville, a good Evansville kid, North High School grad, right?
That's right, yep.
Yep, North High School grad, then you went to IU and Kelly School of Business and then the IU Law School, came back home. Next thing you know, you're married and living in Newburgh. Don't know why you did that.
Yeah.
But
And just to clarify, that was actually why I had to get off the board, because I moved to Newburgh already. That was already, but you're right, yes.
all right. So, and you are serving on boards in Newburgh, but you can speak to what it's like to be young, coming to Evansville, serving, and then the desire to continue to serve. Mark, if you'd like to.
And not being able to.
Not, well, you could just move right on back.
Well, that's what. That's our encouragement. Move back to Evansville. And I'm pleased to introduce Lori Sherman. Lori's a graduate of IU School of Law and has worked at, she's an attorney, worked at the Indiana Legal Services, the prosecutor's office. She has also worked with the Human Relations Commission, which is a governmental board, so she has the experience of being involved in a city-county board that has requirements and that this ordinance affected. And she's now an attorney working for a local governmental agency, I should say, I guess, local/state governmental agency, and has had experience both in government and somewhat in politics, but more in government. And so I think it'll be and she's got some strong opinions about this issue.
She's also local. Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about where you grew up.
Well, I was born and raised here in Evansville, and I have to say that I didn't go to high school, so immediately when I say I was born and raised, they say, where'd you go to high school? But I did go to Culver Elementary, and then I went to Glenwood, and I graduated from there, and I went to high school in another state. But yeah, I grew up on the south side of Evansville.
And you're a graduate of IU Law School, too.
I am.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify really quickly, I interned at the prosecutor's office. I didn't actually work for them, so,
Okay.
and I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay. I was close.
Yeah.
And what your comment was, and you said I guess from my perspective is that when the ordinance was proposed, the mayor initially agreed to it, said he'd
You did.
honor it, said he'd live by it, and then once it passed, he promptly changed his mind and decided he wouldn't live with it.
I don't know that he changed his mind
And,
because he did replace all the board members who were who didn't live in the city.
He kind of went through the list and said, yes, I'll pick that you can live in the county, and no, you can't. He went through the list and kept the ones he wanted and let other ones go that he wanted to. But then he promptly, when the council overrode the veto, which may be his first and only veto he's had since he's been mayor.
I think you might be right. Do you know of another one?
Well, I think we need to clarify a little bit of the history here.
Let me finish, though. He promptly pays the city attorneys to file a lawsuit only to cost the taxpayers money in defending.
Well, it's true that
trying to
in
go
the
it.
fall, the mayor did say, I am okay with this ordinance, generally speaking. However, that ordinance as proposed changed and was much more sweeping and drastic than was initially proposed. And at the December city council meeting where this was passed, Lloyd, I should say the mayor, Winnicky, got up and said, this is, as amended, is, we believe, illegal, goes against what the state statute allows, and we will oppose this. And so while he did immediately come out and oppose it, it was right when it had changed. And I don't think it wasn't a situation where the city council had passed something and then the Mayor Winnicky changed his position after they had passed it. Before the vote was taken, he was on record, and you can go down and look at the minutes, and I've actually listened to the audio recording before we came here. It's very clear that the mayor's council and his chief of staff got up and said, we oppose this ordinance as you guys are proposing to vote tonight, and they
So,
proceeded to vote on it.
I have to say, since, what position of the ordinance changed? Because if his position was one thing initially, what about the ordinance changed to where he says, wait a minute, this is such a huge amendment?
Right.
This is,
Well, again, my understanding is that it encompassed far more boards and commissions in a much more dramatic way. But I think the important thing is, and this goes against what Scott Danks had said
And
afterwards.
Scott's the city council's attorney.
Right, the city council attorney, that people were taken aback and that they were surprised when the mayor had filed the lawsuit. But in reality, at that December city council meeting where it was passed, the mayor's representatives and the mayor himself were very clear that he opposed what they were proposing to pass that evening.
Well, the actual sponsor of it told me from the very start, it was the intention that it include every board, every city board, and that there never had been a change, and that it was always. And I don't know, to say that it perhaps is not in agreement with state law, I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. The council's attorney doesn't agree with that, and I understand their position is that it's more restrictive in some ways than state statute.
Yes, well, that's a legal argument. Laura,
Right.
do you have any comments on what it means to you as a lifelong resident of the city?
what this ordinance means?
Yes.
I think when I first heard the ordinance, my initial position was I thought about myself, as a young girl, my mom would say, I got your best interest at heart, or my pastor would say, I have your best interest at heart, or my government would say, I have your best interest at heart. But I think that I have my best interest at heart, and I think that I'm in the best position to decide for myself. And so in thinking about the ordinance, I feel that the city of Evansville has its best interest at heart. So I would say initially I support the ordinance because I feel that the people within the city will be in the best position to decide for themselves. Now, I do think there could be some sort of qualification, a narrow exception to say that in the event the city of Evansville lacks someone with the expertise, perhaps then you could look outside the city. But I think that, that should be a narrow exception.
But I can't imagine in a community of over 122,000 people, you'd have a certain specific expertise outside the city that you wouldn't have in a pool of 122,000 people.
Josh, were there any
I mean-
examples of expertise that we were lacking that had to be filled by folks from out in the county or Newburgh, or I think even one from Henderson?
Well, I think there's a lot of good examples of expertise. Of course, probably the most prominent, because he wrote some prominent letters to the editor, is going to be Luke Yeager, president of a local bank, young, energetic guy. A bank that's headquartered in Evansville, employs a lot of people in Evansville, pays a lot of tax dollars, and he brings a lot of banking and loan expertise and experience. And he's on a board that focuses on loans. And he's somebody now that has to not be involved and has to find another replacement. The mayor has to find a replacement for
But
him.
he can be involved as a county appointee. And I know him, and he's an excellent person and excellent board member, but I think there are also bankers who live within the city limits who could serve in that same capacity. I guess part of what you have to look at, and I just had somebody talk to me earlier about they were very much opposed to the consolidation measure that was defeated, and
Defeated soundly.
soundly,
actually.
and a number of the a group of people who live out in the county said, we beat that consolidation because we didn't want to be involved with the city. And now, why would we, it's a little hypocritical for us to come back now and say, but we want to govern the city when we don't want to be a part of the city. Surely the people who live in the city ought to be able to govern themselves without coming out in the county and us taking the hypocritical type role. And I think that certainly has merit, that consolidation was soundly defeated, and yet people who live in the county, and some in Newburgh, want to come back and control the operations of the city.
Well-
If you wanted to do that, vote for consolidation, you know?
So what is preventing people with expertise, like the fine young banker you referred to, what's preventing them from living
Moving
in
back.
Evansville? Yeah. Can you tell me? I mean, you moved. I think it had something to do with your beautiful young bride.
Sure. I think there's a lot of reasons that people, I think, and I don't know that we want to make this a consolidation debate, but I think you raise on some important issues. I mean, there's a whole lot of boards where the mayor has the majority of appointments
Very many, quite a few.
to boards and commissions
And
that
many.
have governance over the entire county. And I think this was an argument that a lot of people who were in favor of unifying the city and county government said that, hey, I know people outside city limits, you don't want to be involved in city government, but guess what? City government is controlling and running a lot of what you do. You can think of zoning, I think maybe even the Parks Board, the majority, if I'm not mistaken.
They all have county members, county
Yeah, but my point
representation.
is that the mayor's appointments outnumber them and are actually the majority.
Well, the
And so,
reason it's based on the population.
well,
And it's
Right.
based on the number of people who
sure, but
are
I think
residents of
it's
the
a
city
benefit.
versus
I
county.
think it's a benefit to those who live outside the city that the mayor would have an interest in making sure their voices and their perspectives is heard as well on boards and commissions that govern the entire county. And it goes just back to why restrict, and again, I think Cheryl's done a great job of pointing out that there are two different issues. There's a legal issue, is this legal or not? And the courts are going to tell us that, and I have a pretty strong opinion about that. Then there's another issue that's more policy. Whether or not it's legal or not, is this good policy? And so, from a policy standpoint, I think it's important that we not restrict the ability of our leaders to appoint people with expertise, whether that's somebody who's a veterinarian who's been doing something with animal control for years and years, or somebody who's involved with loans and banking and knows that. Those are people who have expertise that I think we shouldn't restrict their ability to go and do it. And I
But
might
they're-
also...
Let me just throw out here,
But they're
where
not
does the
restricted.
logic for that end? Should we bring in experts from
Owensboro.
Missouri,
Yeah.
France?
I mean, really, though,
where do you draw the
mean-
boundary if you're looking for expertise?
Well, and I think the other issue, which the courts are going to have to look at, is on the flip side, where do you draw the boundary on what city council gets to decide the mayor's choices are? Because the statutes often say the mayor gets to appoint 3 people, or in some cases they even say the mayor gets to appoint 3 people from within the county or wherever. Now the city council's come and said, actually, we want to make sure that it's just this area. And if they're allowed to do that, what's to stop them from saying, actually, we want them to be 2 to be from this neighborhood and 2 to be from this
All right,
neighborhood, et
so
cetera.
now you're talking power. Now you're talking power. We've gone straight from the legal to the governmental, straight to the political aspect.
and
of
it's
it.
typical
Is
in
this
most
just a power
laws.
grab by
It's-
one or the other body? Is it?
Well, I think yes, and of course I would see it as a situation where I think city council really is trying to power grab. This isn't something that city council has tried to do before until we have a Republican mayor. So why else would they do that?
Well, we've
And-
had
well-
Republican mayors before, and this.
Well-
We haven't
this
had
wasn't-
90
But
out
I
of
think what
about
happened-
270 board members, 90 of them did
But
not
I
live
think
in the
what's
city.
happened is,
I
there
think that tipped the balance.
there are a large number of members on boards that live outside the city limits, and the council feels like you need to represent the city.
It's particularly if you're spending tax dollars.
And if you're gonna,
Right.
if you want to be on a board and you want to be part of the governmental function of a board, you ought to live in the city. Just like if you're a member of the board of the Kiwanis Club, you got to be a member of Kiwanis.
And I would
And
yeah.
most organizations and clubs, they say, to be on our board of directors, you have to be a member, and you may be required to be a member for so many years. And I think that's one of the dominant issues is that you have a vested interest, and that you have more of an interest. And I guess secondly is there is nothing that would prevent a person in the county from being appointed by the county commissioners to serve on a board. And one of the things this ordinance did, interestingly enough, was there were some boards that were already not constituted legally, where the statute already said you have to be a member of the city.
Do you have any examples of that?
Public safety was one, right? and it said you have to be a resident
Of the
of the
ERC.
city,
Yeah.
As another-
and they weren't
Yeah.
they weren't constituted that way. And this ordinance brought some of those boards to light that the members
Yeah.
had to be replaced.
Of course, the interesting thing about the ERC, which is the Evansville Redevelopment Commission, is that the city council also had people appointed who were outside
Indeed.
the city limits. So
There,
this
it
wasn't
was a mess across the
unique-
board, I
right.
think. There are a lot of unclear ordinances that define the boards, statutes that define boards, and they weren't being followed by
Mm-hmm.
either group. So it cleaned it up. But I wanted to ask Lori a question. As a millennial, I guess you're both millennials.
I might just be just outside. of
Just
that.
outside, you're definitely a millennial, though. What does the controversy say to your age group who live here in the city and who were bypassed? What does it say to your?
I'm not for sure if I understand your question, but I'm not for sure if I can address it. Can you, rephrase it?
Well, you're young, you're here, you
Right.
haven't been appointed to any boards here locally. I guess you worked for the Human Relations Commission, but you weren't appointed as a member.
Right.
And you learn through this whole controversy that about a third of the city's appointees didn't live in Evansville. Did you look around and say, well, what about me?
I think that's interesting, and I have to say, just going back to interest, because I think we spoke on expertise, but I live in the city, and I just feel that, just because you've been doing something for 20 years doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the best position to decide for a city. And my position is, if you came back to the city to enhance it, to so to speak, I think that the mayor should take a hard look at you. And in fact, the people in the city vote for the mayor. And so
Another strong political point.
So with that being said, I think the mayor is elected to govern the people within the city, and I think that he should start by looking in the city. And I think, as someone who actually graduated from law school and chose to come back to Evansville, to see people being skipped over, it's almost like, well, do I need to move outside the city? I want to be a part of Evansville. This is what I came back to do, to enhance my city, but yet and still people within the city are being looked over.
Well,
I'll give you-
let me give you a couple of facts about the case. I found out that it will actually be heard in oral argument in a very unique hearing. For the first time ever, we're going to have something that's called an en banc panel. All of the Superior Court judges, except one, will hear this case. The one who is not going to be part of it will be Maggie Lloyd. Her brother is the city controller,
Mayor, yeah.
and she recused herself. But the other 6 will don their robes, come into the city council chambers to hear this argument at 5:30 in the evening. They're going to make it a public, it will be a public hearing, like almost all court proceedings. There won't be any cameras, so if you want to be there, you gotta
You gotta
be
be there.
there.
No television,
Yeah,
no
it's not
television,
gonna be
okay.
on the internet. You've got to show up. Here's the drill. Here's what's happening first.
What date was that?
Hang on, I'm getting there. But they haven't quite set the date yet. It will be in the second half of April. So here's
Okay.
what's happening first. There's going to be a brief filed by the city council on or about March 2nd, and then the city's going to file a reply along about the 17th, and then they'll hold the hearing. They haven't set that date yet. Again, it'll be in the second half of April, which is, alarmingly, right before the primary. And can you imagine the effect that this may or may not have on the
Absolutely.
primary city elections? There's already one primary in the Republican side, and you have one primary in the Democrat side for city council. So that might throw a twist into that. I've been told that the fees for a case like this, just to get it into that city council chambers, the total fees for both sides, it's going to be around $30,000 to $40,000 to hear this. And that's another point. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Should we be spending
Well,
taxpayer dollars to fight?
I would say, should we
trouble?
be wasting time, restricting who the mayor can appoint when, you look throughout the state of Indiana, this is something that happens throughout communities throughout Indiana. You go to town after town and city after city, they do not restrict the executive branch like the city
Oh, they
council has
do. It's
tried
in
to
the
do.
state law right now.
Well, that in state law, sure,
There's
but
a
I'm saying
number
the
of-
town
there's
council
a
and the
number
city
of
councils don't
boards.
go do that.
And I'm not sure, but I would imagine there probably are some. I know that to serve to run for office, you have to have residency requirements to run as a
Which is a state statute.
To run as a second ward. But the point of it is that you need to live in that governmental unit to represent the people that you're making laws and governing, and that's exactly what this does. Is it says if you want to be part of the governmental body and be a part of the rules, the regulations, and the administration of government, you need to live in the city and you need to live in the area that you want to regulate. It seems pretty logical to me. I'm sorry, Lori.
No, I was just going to say I definitely don't think that it's a waste of time. And like I said, I think that, and I keep going back to this, is that the people in Evansville are in the best position to decide for themselves. When you have all the different counties coming together to make decisions on behalf of Evansville, you have things like, the hotel and all these different redevelopment ideas coming from all different angles. Just because you have a business in Evansville does not mean that you can make decisions, or that you should, about redevelopment.
And I'll give you the opposite. And up until this past January, not one county commissioner lived in the county outside the city limits. Okay, they all lived in the city limits. I know from experience as a former county commissioner that had I not lived in the county, I would not know the condition of the streets. I would not know the neighborhoods. I would not know the operation of how county government really runs. And I always felt there should have been a balance to ensure that at least a county commissioner should live outside,
Well, let me ask
the
Josh
city
this.
limits. And I think this is logical.
What does the mayor gain? Let's say we go in there and those 6 black robe judges rule in his favor. What does he walk out of that room?
Well, I think number one, if something is illegal, as I think he genuinely believes, and as I actually believe that the restrictions here are counter to state law, then I think he has a duty to make sure that state law is followed, both for himself and any successor. But I think number two, like I said, it restricts. Assuming he wins, I think it allows him to continue to reach out and tap the expertise, whether they happen to live a block or two outside city limits or not.
Why wouldn't you just wait then for a new city council to come on board and have this ordinance repealed? Why go through the unprecedented 6 panel of judges in a panel, $30,000 or $40,000? Why wouldn't we just wait to another time and not spend money on that?
Well, it goes back to, like I said, I think if something is not legal, then you have a duty to challenge that. I think, and I haven't studied the statutory requirements here, but that may also come into play. To wait too long may restrict things. But
But
regardless,
it's going to be
I think
interesting if they come back and say it is legal.
Well, we have to wrap
Okay.
up. We are nearly out of time.
And the last point is, here we go again. We're going to waste $40,000 of taxpayers' money over a useless
ordinance.
lawsuit.
Are you saying it's a useless
I
ordinance,
don't
Mark?
think it's a useless ordinance at all.
No, over the mayor coming back and appealing it, for no reason. He needs to honor it. The county, it's just, to me, it's logical. The city council passed the ordinance, and the mayor needs to honor it.
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. The
Thank
time
you
passed
for
very
being here.
quickly.
Yeah.
Josh,
It was a
thank
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Cheryl, I look
Thanks,
forward to this continued discussion on other issues.
Okay.
This year in the tri-state, 1 out of 8 people will be in an accident.
Would you know what to do?
Pain and suffering, lost time if you're working.
When you call Woods & Woods, you are not a statistic. You are our client, and we will fight to get the money you deserve.
If you're in an accident, call Woods and Woods if you want justice.
If you've been injured, call 1-800-544-2108.
Let Woods and Woods work for you. You don't owe us a dime unless we win your case.